First of all, Luca here from the SharePoint ODSP OneDrive and SharePoint development framework. We built this little thing called the SharePoint framework that has been very much successful thanks to every one of you guys. Thank you very much. And basically with SharePoint framework, just to provide a little recap, is the platform and the developer framework that you can use in order to build solution for Microsoft 365 canvases and hosting this solution in Microsoft 365 SharePoint Online. With this model, you can build a solution for Microsoft Teams as personal apps, tabs, meetings application, and messaging extensions. For SharePoint, like web part extensions and full page app pages. For the kind of a still new workload called Viva Connection, by building dashboard cards for dashboard using the adaptive card extensions components type. And as recently announced, you can also now use SharePoint framework to build solution for Outlook and Office.com. And one of the reasons why is because these platforms are aligning more and more their hosting model with the Microsoft Teams. So building solution for Microsoft Teams and these other hosts will be basically almost the same. So in terms of Viva Connection and Viva Extensibility, if you haven't seen what Viva Connection is, this is what it looks like today. The majority of people are experiencing the left version of Viva Connections, which is the one that is available everywhere. There is a mobile experience that is a native experience built on top of Microsoft Teams, and there is a solution that will show up in Teams as well as SharePoint pages in your home site, where you can basically have cards, feeds, and everything that is important for you to access during your daily work. We are also releasing a new version of Viva Connections, which is the one that you see on the left. This is right now rolling for first release, targeted release customers. And the more we are progressing, the more that the experience will change from the one on the right to the one to the left. The one to the left is a little bit more railed. It requires less configuration steps in order to have that available, but it basically use the same technology and capabilities that the other one, which means that if you already invested on your cards, if you already built your cards using SharePoint framework and adaptive card extensions, you will be able basically to use everything, and there is nothing that you have to change or you have to update in the cards and in your projects themselves. A couple of other things important to mention here. So when we shipped the Viva Connections, the Viva Connection experience on mobile was using a different kind of rendering technology, which was more React Native. We are changing that a little bit so that now the same React experience is on the web and on the mobile as well. That should provide more consistency, and most importantly, it will provide a better and a faster way for us to align fixes and capabilities and new functionalities across multiple platforms, mobile and desktop and web. Vesa, as you noticed before, I'm not able to see any comments. I'm not able to see any hands raising, something like that. Please, yep. If there is something I have to repeat. Thank you so much. Okay, so here's the team. There's a big team actually, but all these people are in charge of many things. We have SharePoint framework. We have Viva Connection Extensibility platform. This is the team on the left that is led by John. Those are all the engineers that are writing the code that are making things real. The one in the middle is Ed. All the PMs here are also in charge of Viva Connections and other platform capabilities, just like Microsoft Graph, support in SharePoint, other kind of areas like notifications, the feeds in Viva Connections, some caching mechanisms based on OneDrive Sync, et cetera, Those are the PMs over there. And then the team on the right is the teams in China that they have been engaging with us for providing enhancement and future capabilities on the app catalog. They are the one that built the new app catalog experience, as well as store integration. And then we have Pat, which is our principal software architect that is ensuring that everyone is not screwing up things. And when we screw up, he tells us nicely that we screwed up things. That's the team. It's a big team, but we are in charge of a lot of things. And that's why you can see so many names over here. Okay, so let's talk about what we have and what we will have. This slide is easy. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. This is what we have in 1.16. I hope you guys are already using 1.16. I've seen feedback coming on GitHub. Thank you very much for that. Please keep that coming. That's a crucial way for us to understand if our direction is the right one and to be able to react on things that are not working quite right. The next 3 slides are the one that I want to spend a little bit of more time. And the next 3 slides are basically focusing on a couple of things. So the next slide, which is this one, is focusing on 1.16. This is what we think to have in 1.16. There's a couple of things.
1.17.
Hey, 1.17.
English is 16, 17.
It's not English. It's coffee.
Yes.
That is luck in the system. But thank you very much. Yes, 1.17. So this is what we are currently planning to ship in 1.17. A couple of things to mention. So one is that for sure we want to bump our dependencies to the latest and greatest. Team.js SDK, we want to put at least to 1.7. That's why there is a plus over there. If there is something better, we will go with there. We want to go to Webpack 5 support. This is aspirational, but we really want to do that. We are going to move to the schema version 1.5 of adaptive cards. It will give you the ability to do things like table support in Quick View for the adaptive card extensions in Viva connections. And the other thing that we want to do here is that we want to bump the Teams manifest to 1.13 when you sync to Teams, so that the Teams manifest version, to 1.13 when you create a solution using SharePoint framework, deploy that in the SharePoint app catalog and click to sync to Teams. That will give the capability of that solution to also surface in Outlook and Office.com. That's a capability that we shipped as a beta version in 1.16, but we didn't do the proper wiring to our sync to team feature that is happening in 1.17. And the other thing that is important, we want to GA the Webpack top action that was shipped as beta in 1.16. Another important thing that I want to mention here is that we are going to ship a feature to support pop-up for token acquisition in browser. So spending a couple of seconds on that one. You know that when you basically create a SharePoint solutions, that SharePoint solution surface in a browser, we leverage the functionality of the MSAL v1 in order to acquire a token from AD and give the token to your code so that your code can call your favorite API, Microsoft Graph, or whatever it is. Right now, there is a logic in the code that where we get an error from the library that the browser is not allowing cookies, or is basically having some problem in retrieving the token because it's not able to properly open the iframe, or the iframe that opens is not able to authenticate properly. You have Safari, you have ITP, that's standard scenario. Our libraries automatically go and does a full page redirect so that the token gets acquired in the mainframe. MSAL doesn't open an iframe, and your code works. That's interesting, fine, and dandy, and cool because it's all automated. If you have one or few API access, but if you are going to access different kind of APIs and you need different scopes, you're basically having a lot of refreshes in your screen because every time you get for a new token and you don't have the cookie for login.microsoftonline.com, we automatically refresh the page and then you see a lot of flickering. There is a feature that will ship hopefully in 1.17 where the admin using PowerShell will be able to set a property in the tenancy that basically will tell our library to rely on pop-up instead. So the scenario is that if you are a lot of browsers that have a lot of unmanaged clients that have Safari and ITP enabled, you can enable this capability so that instead of flickering, the moment we try to access AD to get a token and we get an error, we instead of automatically refreshing, we will open a pop-up. and then in that pop-up you will be able to re-authenticate, or you will be able to be a very silent pop-up if you have single sign-on enabled. And at that point, that will be the only time you see the pop-up for that session, and you will be able to acquire all the tokens from there. So that's a capability that is off by default, and the admin will be able to enable starting from 1.17 using a SharePoint Online PowerShell. Okay, let's talk about what are our aspirations and where our thinkings are focusing for beyond 1.17. So the first thing is that bot-driven adaptive card extensions, or ACEs. This is happening. It will probably happen. It will surely happen. It will surely happen this calendar year. We are working very, very hard to be able to ship that as soon as possible. It really doesn't have any dependencies on SharePoint framework, meaning that we will release no update in the SharePoint framework SDK or libraries in order to be able to create bot-driven ACEs. It's all server-side, so it really is not bounded to any kind of a SharePoint framework releases. But this is happening, and we hope to ship that quite soon. We also want to...
Luca, sorry.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a bit? What is bot-driven ACE? So
thank you for the question.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So it's interesting because also with all of these new hype and vibes on bots and AI, you're just like, oh, you are going to build a feature that you are going to ask a robot to build the card, and the card will magically build by itself. No, it's not that. So bot-driven ACEs is basically using the same approach that teams use for bots in order to build adaptive card tabs. So the idea is that you can reuse your existing bot that you built for Microsoft Teams, or build a new bot using whatever language you want, C#, Java, you name it. And basically, we will use the bot infrastructure to store your code, and the adaptive card code will basically talk to the bot and say, hey, I want you to give me data so that I can render a card view. Or, hey, this is an action that happened, give me the data to render the quick view. So the idea is basically to use the bot infrastructure that Microsoft has in order to execute your code that will generate card view and generate quick view. So that's what it is. It has nothing to do with artificial intelligences, has nothing to do with natural language. It's more a way for leverage and infrastructure in order to be able to host your code, which will be a new bot, to power and generate cards views and quick view. Does it make sense?
Yep.
I'll take that as a yes. Okay, cool. Thank you. So then the other thing that we want to do is for sure move Cache API to GA. One of the things that we're working on is building a notification platform for Viva connections so that you will be able to generate a notification that will surface in the Microsoft Teams notification infrastructure. And upon clicking this notification, you will be able to interact with your card, interact with your quick view, interact with your solution from the notification itself. Viva Home Experience, the reason why it's there is because, as I mentioned before, is yes, already shipped to some tenants that are in targeted release, but it's not around the 100% deployed worldwide. So that's one of the other things that is happening as we speak. We also want to have a better support for home site and Viva Connections mobile. So that's an interesting thing. What we want to do here is that we want to be able to have a similar experience that the new Viva Home users have in the desktop, in the mobile itself. And what I mean by that is that we will be able to give you the opportunity to reach your home site, your SharePoint home site, and host that SharePoint home site browser experience within Viva Connection Mobile from Viva Connection dashboard itself. So aligning the experiences between the desktop and the mobile. We are also working on new connection card templates. We had a lot of success with the new templates, but we also got a lot of feedbacks that they are good but not enough. So we are iterating across these feedbacks in order to build new templates and new capabilities on the Viva Connection and on the ACES platform itself. And then one of the other things that we want to do here, that's probably interesting for some of you guys. We want to, so you know that today we have this thing called the Card Designer ACE. And the Card Designer ACE is a way for you to be able to quickly create an ACE by configuring the card view and being able to feed the card itself with adaptive card JSON in order to have a quick view. That's nice, and we have seen a lot of usage of that card design ACE, especially in scenarios when you want to build static cards that are a little bit of functionalities, or if you want to build demos. But one of the lack that we have in the card designer ACE is the ability to consume SharePoint data or to consume data that are exposed through APIs, Microsoft Graph or whatever. So one of the things that basically we are building is a functionality inside of the Card Designer ACE, where the author of the dashboard, upon adding a new instance of the Card Designer ACE in the dashboard itself, they will be able to also execute API calls and being able to consume and introduce outside external data in the Card Designer ACE itself. And because we want to be able to keep that kind of flow of building a card, configuring the card, consuming data, and make the card available to the users secure and governed by the same governance capabilities and functionalities that SharePoint framework produces, what we are doing is that upon configuration save of the card itself, the idea is to basically start a process that process will create a package that will be deployed in the app catalog, and the card will only be available to everyone once the admin approves the card itself. So the idea is basically to target citizen developers. Think about the script editor web part in a governed way for Viva Connections, where the author will be able to create this card, make the card powerful by consuming external data. And once the card is ready, upon publishing, the system will recognize that, will create a package, deploy the package in the app catalog, and the admin will be able to approve, and only after that the card will be available. So that's one of the things that we are also aiming to ship soon. Moving on, because we're not there yet. Other things that we are considering and we are building and we are working on are multi-instance and Viva Connections. So today with Viva Connections, you can only hit one home site, but what if you have multiple home sites? That's one of the things that we are building here. Connection for tablet support. I think this is already available somewhere, or it's going to be available soon somewhere. But the idea is to basically to have a third form factor, not only desktop and mobile, but also tablet for Viva Connections, in order to be able to have kind of a different real estate for the cards that they need that the most. Personalization is another thing that we are going to be able to provide soon for Viva Connections. And then another thing that we are building is this kind of feature called the development geo. And this is a SharePoint framework capability. So the idea behind this feature is that you as a company have a set of developers that you want to dedicate a place on your environment so that they can build content by consuming tenant data. So it's not a different tenant, it's not a developer tenant. They are developing in the tenancy itself, but you want to isolate them so that they are not able to access, I don't know, maybe they are not able to access production API, or they are not able to access other things. So the idea here is to leverage the multi-geo capability that the SharePoint have. And by leveraging this capability, you will be able to create a development geo, and that development geo will basically have a different URL, because that's how multi-geo works. And that different URL will be bounded to a different application principal in AD. And that geo will have different permissions. We'll have a set of permissions that are only available for that geo, so that the developers will be able to code their solutions, but only use APIs that are available there. So that's one of the things that we're doing there. Another functionality that we're building is more capabilities and control for the admins to understand where ungoverned script can potentially be injected in their tenancy. So today we have this feature called no script. When you disable no script, you are able to re-enable script injection using script editor, web part, and all of the other functionalities that are available on classic templates and sites. It's all nice and dandy. It's all controlled by the admin, but the admin has no idea to understand where no script is disabled or enabled. So we are building some functionalities so that when you go to the tenant administrator, you will be able to have a look and see where no script was disabled and basically being able to act on that. And then the other thing that we are working on is the ability to create the full page apps that are isolated from the rest of the tenancy, but they're not using an iframe. So today, when you're creating an isolated web part or an isolated app, we run that in an iframe, and that iframe points to a different domain. And this is a way for us to be able to constrain the permissions on that web part only. Permission constriction is great, but iframes sucks. So one of the things that we want to do is being able to create an app page, a full page app, and then that full page app, the entire app will run from a different, an isolated domain. So will not an iframe, will not be an iframe, but will still be a different domain that will still be connected or be bounded to a different application principal that will still have its own permission scopes. But it will not be an iframe, and it will be a full page with different domains. Similarly to if you have a SharePoint hosted add-in and you see the URL being different, that will be the kind of a similar experience for this capability and this feature. And then a couple of things that we're doing that are not SharePoint framework key, but are going to be used in SharePoint framework and that we know that are useful to you. SharePoint pages in Microsoft Graph API is already there, and we are going to extend and ship that soon, or make that more available soon. And another thing that we are building is the ability to have vanity domains in Graph. So today, if you go to /me/sites, and you are in a vanity domain tenant, and if you don't know what a vanity domain tenant is, good job, you are not dealing with a lot of complexity that can be a pain in the back sometimes. But if you have to, you know that that information is not available today in Microsoft Graph. So what we are doing is that we are putting that capability in Microsoft Graph so that in the same way that the multi-geo information is there, in the same API, you will also be able to see all the vanity domains that your tenant has. That was a lot of content, but I think I'm done.
Good. So I guess you have one more slide, unless I'm completely mistaken.
Yes.
Because we have a few minutes. So we do realize, and I do apologize on this for those who can hear us, but they cannot see the chat. We have unfortunately maxed out the chat with our current meeting with 1,000 attendees in the chat. But we would love to have questions in the chat and feedback for the team, for those who can actually write them. Related on
1,000?
Yeah, in the chat, yes. Yes, that's a recurrent meeting, so it's not 1,000 attendees in this call, but still.
For a moment, you made me feel important.
Yeah.
Thank you for crushing my souls.
You're welcome, Luca. But we would love to have a discussion on chat related on what you need, what works, what doesn't work. We will move into the next topic and the demo of today with AC right after this slide. But please continue discussion. Something what you would love to have, or something is missing, or if something works, positive feedback is absolutely welcome as well. So please let the team know. Because that's super valuable for the next steps planning. Or if something on this previous slide was confusing, please ask about it. Or if there was something like, hey, I want to have exactly that, that's super important for me. Please share that in the chat as well.
Oh, but also something like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Why you're doing this? We are not going to use this at all. Please spend your cycle elsewhere.
Yeah,
valid comment.
That's
we would really like to hear that.
Yeah, we do not say hell in this show because this is a family show, so we'll beep that away, but it's okay. So, sorry, look. Thank you, Luca and John and Alex, helping on the questions on the chat. And then please continue discussion in the chat. We need to be conscious about the time because we do have another topic which this time relates on SPFx. Just a word of a recap for next week. We will have the feature crew who created Viva Home joining us on next week. And next week we also talk about Azure Communication Services, but that's for next week. This week we were quite Viva-centric and SPFx-centric by a coincidence, basically. But please continue discussion again on the chat related on those questions and those features which really work for you. So if there's something you would like to see in SPFx, please let us know. That's super important for the team.